Hi everybody! I know that I was not supposed to do another video, and this really is the one. I'm taking Facebook app off my phone after this, and I'm going to BitChute, and we really need to go over there, and hopefully DTube as well for blogs. I wasn't going to do another video, but there is something that happened yesterday that I didn't expect to happen that I really think I want to talk about now, because it's really on my mind, and I think it's important to bring to the community, because it talks about censorship, about what something that happened to Jamarl Thomas over on the Progressive Soapbox. I want to talk about that, but I also want to really, I think this is something that I want to say to the community, and it is a message to not just the people in the community and viewers, but it is a message to the alternative media community itself. Because the reason that we do these videos, at least the reason I do these videos, I'm a volunteer, I don't have a Patreon, I don't seek to make this a career. I don't think you can make this a career, actually, and be able to keep your voice in a way that isn't going to have to bend around, you know, the politics or the bureaucracy, or what it takes to stay viable, to make it a living in the kind of environment we have. So that's why I will not pursue it that way, and I don't think it's going to be very viable for me to remain doing this for much longer, just because of the climate we are in and the level of censorship that we are experiencing. So let me tell you guys what happened. Yesterday, I was watching Jamarl Thomas over on the Progressive Soapbox. Now, anybody who knows me and Jamarl, I like Jamarl, and Jamarl likes me. We don't agree on some pretty central things, but I have a lot of respect for him, because unlike other people who I try to convey information and like have a discussion and try to get a debate or, you know, get some information out, he may not always agree with me, but he does have me on, and he does allow me to counter him. And I'm not looking for people to bow down and have to go along with everything I say. I just ask that they listen and consider my points. So I have, mad respect that Jamarl does that. That said, and me and Jamarl call each other out, that said, I was kind of stunned in what I watched with Jamarl yesterday. And this isn't a criticism of him, this is an observation, and it's not really even about him. It's something that I am seeing consistently with alternative media commentators, and not just the alternative media commentators, but the citizens of this country who are abandoning our ability to critically think because of our fear, of our cognitive dissonance, and we really are in danger. We are in danger of losing our rights to free speech. We are under a mass power grab of expanding of the government and the police expanding to take even more of our civil rights away. So we know this has been happening. This has been happening consistently since 9/11. We know this. Every tragedy that occurs, they move on to use it as a means to argue why they have to take our rights away to make us more secure. And I've pointed this out, and I just want to read this quote, and then I'll talk about the specifics of what happened yesterday. But I want to read this quote because it's really, really important about the environment we're in right now. This is the environment we're in. And this is not a partisan dialogue. This is not about right or left, red or blue, libertarian or green. This is the climate that we live in. So I am heavily going over to BitChute, so I got to pull up a BitChute video. I'm going to be putting everything up there. Let me go to, I have these links. I have everything I've been talking about. If you want the links, they are in the videos up over on BitChute. And I want you to listen to this quote. John Kelly, who was the Department of Homeland Security last April, this is the quote he said in remarks that he gave in his speech. "The threat to our nation and our American way of life has not diminished. In fact, the threat has metastasized and decentralized. And the risk is as threatening today as it was that September morning about 16 years ago, referring to 9/11, which they always invoke. And this is all bad news, but it gets much, much worse. And if you go over to the BitChute video, you can read his full speech about how much, much worse it gets. So my point being is, for all the rights that they have rescinded, for taking away habeas corpus, for having the executive power to now target Americans to kill on our own soil, for claiming the right by revoking the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948, which legalizes the use of propaganda and psyops against the American people, for the establishment of the Patriot Act and the Patriot Act 1 and the Patriot Act 2, which were only supposed to be temporary orders, which somehow became permanent law, for the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security, which is an unconstitutional organization in its inception. We have seen again and again every tragedy in this country followed by mass media fear-mongering, hysteria, propaganda, and grabs, stunning grabs of our civil rights. And the majority has not only remained silent on it, the majority, because of the way they propagandize us with the fear and the manipulation, the majority they manipulate to go along and sometimes even call for the rescinding of our civil rights. That is how manipulated we are. So we know, without a doubt, 100%, these events are used for civil rights grabs and expansion of what can only be called a police state, right? We know this. Now, in the wake of Florida, what have we seen? We have seen stunning moves to do breathtaking power grabs. You have, and this is not the right or the left, right? You have, under Donald Trump, who's saying, oh yes, we have to act on mental illness. Mental illness is a code for implementing policies. What are they trying to do under the guise of mental illness? Implementing policies under that guise to take away rights. So you see Donald Trump with the talking points, and you see Chris Hayes having the police on with using the same kind of talking points. And what are they proposing? Preemptive detention by the police on their subjective interpretation of social media posts. They can detain you, bring you in for mental health evaluation without any evidence that you pose any threat to yourself or other people. They are talking about preemptive detainment, about what you post on social media. That is stunning. It is not a exaggeration to call that the stuff of Orwell and A Brave New World. All right? This is what is done with these events. So yesterday, back to the story, and this all ties together eventually. You know how wordy I get. I'm watching Jamarl Thomas on the Progressive Soapbox, and I listened to this person make this argument about he does this brilliant introduction about all the ways that the media has lied to us, propagandized us. From everything from the most recent Russia fairy tale construction around the election fraud, which was actually internal, to going back. I mean, it goes way back before that, but just let's keep it semi-recent history. Let's talk about Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction. We'll keep it in that time frame. And Jamarl does what I can only describe as a brilliant summary of what that was, right? We know. And so anybody who was an activist or a truth speaker during those times will understand the reality of what it was like during those times to try to speak out against a population that was being propagandized by the media to get us to go along with preemptive war on lies or civil rights grabs on lies for our protection, when it was really about the profit, the geopolitical control of other nations, theft of resources, and war profiteering, right? So anybody who was in the position of seeing these deceits in real time would be met with, you would try to bring the evidence, you would try to bring the research, and you would be shot down with media propaganda talking points and cliche generalizations and straw man arguments, right? It's like, well, of course, there's bad guys and dictators, and of course Saddam Hussein is a bad guy who wants to get you, and of course they're going to have weapons, and we're America, we got to protect people, and they would say, and it's like, and there's so many people saying it, and those, they all can't be lying, right? They all can't be lying. Too many people would know. There's too many. And so, it's like, and you would be like, yes, but the CIA whistleblowers and Scott Ritter, and that if you look at the evidence, it's like the reports themselves from a couple years ago said in their own reports that they didn't have the evidence of this. And where did this evidence come from when 2 years ago these same inspectors said no? And you would try reason, and you would try logic, and you would try patience, and they tried our patience. And again, and the majority would say you're a conspiracy theorist. A lot of people went far beyond conspiracy theorist. If you spoke out after 9/11 around the questions around that, and even just the questions around the Iraq case, let alone the event itself, remember what George W. Bush said about us? You are either with us or you're with the terrorist, right? And we just heard one of the gun control kids redo that line. The one the kids is like, you are either with us or against us. That's chilling when you hear those kind of same talking points come up again, especially in the same environment of more civil rights grabs. So anybody who has ever been seeing the truth on an issue in real time and tries to speak on it has been in the position of being demonized, ostracized, othered, and shamed by the majority of the people around you. Because it's really not about logic. It's really not about information. It's about playing on people's emotions, getting them to, targeting people very specifically to manipulate them to move to a certain place. That's what propaganda is. So you're not dealing with logic. You're dealing with emotion. And so when I watched Jamarl give a brilliant summary of all the ways that the media lied to us, right? And how we were duped. And there were many of us who tried to speak out in real time. And isn't it interesting, though? Isn't it interesting that... And then the people who you tried to tell all act like they were duped. They tricked us. They lied to us. They manipulated us. I'm like, what? We tried to tell you in real time, and you shamed us and called us conspiracy theorists. And so I'm watching Jamarl. He makes this brilliant argument. And then I watch this person become a living example of cognitive dissonance himself and mirror every behavior that I saw in all of those people that I've dealt with in the past when I tried to warn them about the first Iraq war and the second Iraq war and the rights grabs of the Patriot Act and everything else. And so all of a sudden, I'm not talking to the same person anymore. I'm talking to a person who is using the very tactics that the mainstream media uses and wields against people, and he's using the same means and talking points that they do, that people used in every single event that he just used and as an example. And he is using the exact same talking points and the exact same dismissals that everybody said around everything that he just pointed out, and when they tried to tell people it was true. It was one of the strangest things I've ever seen. It was one of the strangest things. I will give you the video and you can watch it for yourself. And I'm not criticizing Jamarl here. He honestly cannot believe, and I understand this because I was the same way before I actually removed myself from the emotion of it and stepped back and did an objective research myself. And there are some things that you think just can't be true because they are too horrible and the implications of them are too vast to confront. All right? That can't be true because the implications of it are so huge. I can't believe that if I believe that, then I am going to have to believe so many things that I am not ready to let go of. And that is why it's becoming a very, very dangerous time for truth tellers and why I am deciding to step back, because the next phase of this, as people process out and watch the truth unfold, the next phase of this is not people awakening and realizing what's happening. The next phase of this, and you are already seeing it, is kill the messenger. That's the next phase. We'll get to the next phase. The next phase after kill the messenger is when the population wakes up. But in the process of the very painful, painful work of realizing what is going on, people are going to lash out at you. They would much rather think that it is you that is the issue than look at the objective information and documentation that you are bringing to them. They're going to react in self-protection. It's painful. It's scary. There's no place to get a toehold. I understand it. And I have enormous compassion because I've been through the very same process myself. I've been through that process over a much longer time period. I've had time to look at things and adjust and look at things and adjust so that I'm not reacting all at once. I can't imagine what it would be to still hold these false beliefs and have them shattered so quickly. I can't imagine. It was painful enough going through the process in the slow peel the bandage way off that I did. So Jamarl is making the same arguments. So Jamarl's argument was basically that he cannot believe it could be true. That obviously there's people who can be violent and there are a lot of guns in this country. And yes, there are people who would be crazy enough to do some of these kind of things. And he used that he not only used that to not even look at the research and the evidence. He used that to create a storyline where he basically said that because we've been lied to so much by the media, what has happened to people such as myself or people who are questioning these events is that we don't believe anything anymore. And we think everything's a conspiracy and we question everybody and we rightly don't trust people. And then, so we just don't understand that things that are real aren't real, that are actually real aren't real. We just generalize too much. That was his argument. And I'm listening to him and I'm like, well, I don't believe everything is a conspiracy theory. That's a straw man argument. I actually have looked at the evidence and have made my determination based off of the evidence I have compiled and researched for, I don't know, probably about 36 hours worth, right? So he's accusing me of what he just did. He formed a belief that something like this couldn't be true because it's just too far out and the implications are, did not look at any of the research I actually sent him, which I sent him all the links in a very, very, logical timeline with notes to follow. Did not look at any of that and then made these vast, broad statements. They just don't think anything is they think everything's a conspiracy, or what is the motive? What would be the motive for doing this? I don't understand the motive. So the evidence that is showing and indicating something else is going on here isn't important. There was a lot of them. It was the same, and it wasn't just Jamarl. It was the same kind of talking points you see with anybody. They don't argue about what you're presenting them. They don't look at the information you're presenting. They throw out all of these generalized dismissals, and then they tell you that it can't be true. I put up a tweet today. It's kind of funny. But let's, and it was a little sarcastic. I said, student is dropped off by an unidentified Uber, carrying gear, ammunition, rifle, helmet, full face mask, smoke bombs, dons gear, sets up rifle, shoots 3 people, puts the gun back in the case, sets up again, goes on to harm another 14 people on 2 floors in 3 minutes with 4 armed officers outside the scene. You buy that, and we are the ones that are crazy. That is the story that the media has told you, with their timelines and their own officers testifying to this, and their own footage, and their own timelines, and their own 911 calls. And another thing that I get when I talk about this is I will show you, one of the things I've been showing people, and this is just, I can give you the links to these, I'm not going to play them in this video, is we have, I think, over 10 students, teachers, and parents stating on the day of the drill, day of the alleged shooting, that there was a drill planned. And not only was there a drill planned, there was a drill where students were told that they were going to make it seem real. One girl, off a quote of a CNN transcript, said, quote, they told, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was a drill because they told us they were going to use blanks. They were going to scare us, make it seem real, train us for this. Another girl in the video that I shared said in an interview with a local news reporter, quote, they told us to go outside so they could start shooting up. She then describes 3 different shooters being on the scene. When you have over 10 different witnesses telling you that there is a drill planned for that day, and not only was there a drill planned for that day, they are telling you that that one girl is telling you that she was instructed to go outside so they could start the drill. This is what the students are telling you. And do you know what response I get when I share that information? A cognitive dissonance response. What are you trying to say? Me? Me? No, I didn't say anything. These 10 witnesses, parents, teachers, students, just told you a very important piece of information. They are telling you facts about what happened that day that go completely against what the narrative that the media is telling you. The media will put these clips on the TV, right? The students tell you this information. The students contradict what the media just told you. I point that out, and I'm a conspiracy theorist. And that is what I can't abide. If you want to look at information and dispute me on the content, I welcome that. But if you are a person who doesn't even bother to look at the information that they are showing you, which is contradicting the very thing that they're saying in the next breath, and then you want to make it about the issue of the person pointing it out, congratulations. You are every person who has not seen the manipulations of all those past stories that we have found out to be true in real time. Do not make these stories about the individuals pointing out evidence. Do not do that. We know that the media uses these tactics to demonize people who try to challenge their stories that they are using to advance certain ends. We all know that. You know that. So when I'm listening to Jamal mirror the behavior that he created a channel to move away from, and you see, it's not just Jamal. I can't get the other social media commentators who I contact, and not that there aren't other people talking, although a lot of people have had their channels taken down. I can't get people to even acknowledge this. I have sent all these links to all the major commentators. I have given them notes. I have given them a heads up. And these commentators go on to not only ignore what I am showing them, they go on and they talk about it in the context of what I just documented is not even factually accurate. And Katie Johnstone did an article, and her article wouldn't talk about anything that I actually showed her. I sent her links. Her article was that we have permission to question. That was her big step. We have permission to question. She wouldn't question herself, but you know what? You know how bad this is? That's a step. That's a step. When people just feel like, okay, well, I'm going to say it's okay for other people to talk about it. This is the baby steps that we're dealing with. Not that there aren't other commentators. They're all moving over to BitChute. I talk to the guy who runs BitChute every day because he's helping me transfer my work over there. And there is such an exodus off there because they're taking down channels right now without warnings. So yesterday, me and Jamal, we had our talk. And we had a good discussion. It was not a fight. It was, I think it got a little fiery a couple times, but there was never any animosity in it. And there's no animosity in anything I'm saying about Jamal right now. You can watch the video and you can hear his perspective in that video if you want to view that video. I have a lot of respect for Jamal. But we were on and his video got cut off. His live video got cut off, and he lost his live streaming ability after that stream, although YouTube said it was on another video, even though that other video was content that Jamal talks about all the time and has never caused a problem. So Jamal had our video stream cut off in the middle of it, and then he had his live streaming ability taken away. I had my live streaming ability taken away last October when I was trying to factually document some inconsistencies around the Vegas story. They cut off my live stream in mid stream, and they blacked out my face in the video, and then you could still hear the audio, and then it was gone, and then immediately my live streaming ability was pulled. So we are dealing right now with, I think there's kind of an unspoken agreement about what we can talk about and what we can't talk about. And that is coming from a climate of fear. You know, it's really interesting that my videos are pretty generic. All I'm doing in these videos, think about this. All I'm doing in these videos is sharing with you the exact same material that is on the television, on national TV. This is the information that they put out. And then all I do is share that their information is completely conflicting each other, and then I point out some of the things that are being said in the interviews that are contradicting the story. And do you know what people say to me all the time? Because I'm sharing publicly available information or publicly available websites, that's all I'm doing. I'm not doing anything really that radical. Stay safe. Stay safe. You're very brave. Think about that. It is now something that people are so afraid of, and there's such a climate of fear to talk, that even pointing out things that are publicly available, I'm not like bringing in some secret witnesses or something. I'm not doing some explosive report. I'm showing you what they're showing you. And my videos get banned. I got all my live feeds got pulled last week for showing you what they show you. So it's pretty breathtaking, isn't it? So what has happened in that culture of fear is that people aren't just, you think people are just being censored by the mainstream media and being labeled fake news, or having their or having the media taken down by the social media channels. People are self-censoring. There is an unspoken agreement about what we can and can't talk about in this country. And it goes up to a pretty high level. Because you have people like Abby Martin, who initially came out and stood with people who were trying to get a true story out about 9/11. And she made a calculated decision that her career was more important than pursuing that one story. And she kind of threw the 9/11 truth tellers under the bus. Oh, I don't think any, she just backed away. Chris Hedges, do you ever hear him talk about anything like this? Noam Chomsky has actively mocked people who have been doing objective research and providing really good logistical physics, science-based evidence. And Noam Chomsky dismisses them. So what we have developed is people who are acquiescing to the fear culture, bending around it because it's like they're right. You cannot get an interview. You cannot get any larger access. You will have your media channels taken down. So it's not surprising. I'm not even going to offer a full-scale, condemnation. It was nothing I would ever do. But if you are trying to, say, I want to talk about some things, and if I talk about this, I'm not going to have any voice at all, it's not a totally unreasonable thing, but it is in the sense that you won't talk about the very most important things that would break this lie once and for all and allow the country to move forward. We protect the lie. So I think, my point is, and I would say to the social media commentators, what is your goal in what you're trying to do? You want to be alternative media. You want to be a counter to the mainstream narrative. You can't do that if you are going to start mirroring their talking points, and you are going to join in with creating a culture where people who try to speak out against the core truths that are blocking us from moving forward. You mirror and this is how people become. This is how people become what I think a lot of good people initially set out to fight. I don't think, I think some people are evil and they're just sellouts from the beginning, but I think a lot of people, they get drawn into this bit by bit. You make the argument that you can give up this piece of truth so that you can say this other truth. And so you fool yourself and you trick yourself and you're like, I can't talk about that, even though you have to understand that and understand the certain premises to really be able to break through this. But I'm just going to talk about this. It's not working. It won't work, because if you can't talk about the reality of the situation we are living in, you can't effectively create solutions to counter the problems you are facing. Remember, it's like if you're an alcoholic, what's the first step? I have a drinking problem, right? You can't be like, I'm going to talk about everything else but the drinking problem, and we're going to fix it. It's kind of, it's like the car is missing the engine. let's change the tires. And that's where we are at. We've kind of all decided that we are going to go along with this it's kind of an unspoken agreement. And I understand also some people just really aren't to this point. They are behind their cognitive dissonance. So they can't move to even see what they are deceiving themselves about. Blind spots are called blind spots for a reason. You can't see something you don't see. I've had them myself. I'm sure I still, have them about some other things, right? But the thing about this and the thing about the other ones, I would like to just, go through some of the talking points. I'm not a person who believes that every single thing that they tell me on, is fake or an automatic conspiracy. I don't start from that premise. The premise that I start with any given story is I'm going to look at this story the way I do. The people loved me when I applied this to the election fraud issue. These channels couldn't praise me. I couldn't get enough praise from all these people. All I'm doing now is applying the same way that I applied my research then onto this issue. So I look at it, and I'll tell you what I've seen. The reason I question the story is because the story questions itself. It's not me. I'm looking objectively at it. The official timeline is completely off. It's physically impossible for 3 minutes to have all those things happen. It's impossible. There is no Uber driver. They have not shown the Uber driver. We have the testimony of 10 witnesses who say that there was a shooter drill that they were going to make real that day. We have 4 officers on the scene who are armed while it is occurring. We have 3 people supposedly who were shot before they even got into the building, and 4 people are on the scene? And even beyond that, you could go and you could analyze all the conflicting details and the strangeness of this story ad infinitum. And I have done a little of that, and I've given that. But let's remember this. The infrastructure for these simulations exists. They legalized the ability to do PSYOPs by revoking the Smith-Mundt Act in 2002. I think it went through in 2003, but it was in the NDAA of 2002. After that, you had a crisis industry with affiliates within the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA. You have all of these crisis simulation, crisis acting agencies, and crisis simulation agencies come into existence after 2002. 2012. There's a whole industry. And not only is there a whole industry, if you want to go to my Twitter page today, because I put up some really interesting links that everybody should look at. Let me go to my feed here, just to take a second. I've included a FEMA guide. There is a 71-page FEMA guide that you can access through a basic DuckDuckGo or Google search. I don't use Google, but you can access it. This FEMA booklet gives full guidelines for conducting crisis simulation events. It has the parameters for using the actors. It has the parameters for the media to be filming during these events. It has social media coordinators. And if you go to the department, you can then access the forms that they have for actors to sign. The infrastructure of the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and they talk about coordinating not just with the media. They talk about, if you go and read these, they talk about coordinating with all of the local authorities and the police authorities and at every level. And they talk about hiring actors, and they talking about making the simulations as realistic as possible. So they have the infrastructure to create real-life simulations that will look completely real. And they have actor forms that you can download. Now, regardless of what you think about Florida or Vegas or any individual event, the infrastructure is in place. The crisis acting organizations are in place. They're there. They exist. Do you think that they created a law to make it legal to do psyops so that they wouldn't do psyops? Do you think a crisis industry exists? And it's a spreading, growing industry. Crisis cast, crowds on demand, rent a cadaver. Do you think that industry exists because nobody uses it? Do you think, and come on, people. Listen to this. Department of Homeland Security just last month released an active shooter training simulator for teachers. The Department of Homeland Security released a virtual training program for first responders aimed at preparing them for an active shooter incident. Hold on. Now listen to this. I want to point out something else about this. Listen to this quote, and I want you to really think about this. The platform, called Enhanced Dynamic Geosocial Environment, or EDGE, was developed by the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Army. And if you look at these crisis organizations and you look at the affiliates on their page, they are all linked with Department of Homeland Security. And not just in this country, they're linked with international governments. So listen to this. That platform, called Enhanced Dynamics Geosocial Environment, or EDGE, was developed by the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Army and was built on Epic Games' Unreal Engine. For this particular program, the developers listened to audio taken from the Virginia Tech and the Sandy Hook shootings in order to make simulations as accurate as possible. They also spoke to a mother of one of the Sandy Hook victims, according to the Associated Press, and she gave them details about what happened about the day. That's kind of strange. I don't know why you would need to talk to somebody who wasn't there to do software to simulate the shooting event itself. That doesn't even make sense, but okay. And if you see what's going on with these, they are trying to make them, all these drills that they're doing, they want to make them as realistic as possible. Why? Now, if you listen to the kids who talked on the day of the shooting and said that they were going to use blanks and they were going to use screams and that they were going to be carrying people out, why do they need to traumatize children and use fake gunshots and screams and blanks and carry, I can see why they carry people out because that might be a rescue. But, there's been reports on MSNBC, you see them in these simulated drills. They're using blood, this fake blood. We had fire drills. Did we need to have fake fire and burn victims to be able to know how to stay in a classroom and not leave? Why are they simulating these drills? And why are they inviting, and if you look at the FEMA guide, they invite the media to come in and film these realistic events. And then they have social media coordinators so they can get the information out? I really am, what's happening with these stories, and I said this during Vegas, when you had not one single victim of Vegas who was brought to the hospital in a ambulance rescue vehicle, helicopter, but every single one of them was rescued by luggage racks and beer carts and Ubers and taxis. Oh my. Even though the report in the Chicago Tribune said that that all the people were immediately on the scene. The Chicago Tribune reports, they said in the Chicago Tribune for Vegas, they said that the emergency responders were right there. If that was the case, then how come one individual, I forget his name, you can go back and watch my videos, transferred 30 people in a pickup truck? And he had to make 2 trips? you know, and Jamaro made the point. He said, well, there can be discrepancies, and people can get confused, and that's true. But we're not just talking about one or two anomalies. We're not just talking about one or two things that don't match a story that pretty much makes sense. We're talking about the information that is provided by the media that actively debunks their narrative by itself. That's what we're dealing with right now. And we are making a decision right now as this country. We are making a decision. People talk about how did these horrible dictators rise up, and what's one of the questions people always ask looking back, and you can talk about anything, pre-Nazi Germany, 30s Germany, all that. And what do people say? How did they let that happen? Didn't they see it? Didn't they know it? Claudia makes a good point. She is from Germany. She had people, family members who were killed in that war. And the people of Germany, that still lives with them today. And she said, it was the people who decided not to say anything. Everybody decided not to say anything. They saw it. They were afraid. And we haven't said anything, have we? We haven't said anything. We go along and we pretend politicians on the right and the left, because they're all doing it. They're all working to sign and vote for bills that take away our rights. The NDAA that made it legal to do PSYOPs was in 2012 was a bipartisan bill. The Patriot Act bill, bipartisan bills. The NDAA suspending habeas corpus, bipartisan bills. And people will argue, oh, well, a lesser of two evils. What is our bottom line? If you have a politician who is voting so that your government can detain you without trial or charges indefinitely, isn't that a bottom line that you would never support somebody who would hand over that right ever again? Isn't that a bottom line? But we don't have bottom lines because we're always told to compromise, although the compromise is now wholesale sellout. And perfect being the enemy of the good, there is no good. And compromise of lesser of two evils. You compromise again and again based on evil versus evil. And you do that for decades. What are you left with? You are left with what we have right now. And I'm telling you, what is really pathetic right now is that there is a group of people in their living rooms with no money who are risking themselves to go out and try to get this information to people because they see this happening in real time. And you know what the reward for that is? Ostracization, condemnation, smear, name-calling, and risk. And you wonder why there aren't truth tellers. The only way that you counter that, people ask, what can we do for you, Debbie? What can we do? What can we do? I don't want your money. You can't take money and keep your voice. I don't want your money. I want every single person that says that they care about this stuff and who obsesses endlessly over the distractions. When I'm saying this, I know a lot of you guys already do this. I'm just, so please be aware. I know that a lot of you guys are already on the same page, but this is for new people or people who are just starting to wake up. I want you to join us because the thing that you can do and people can do more than anything else is to not allow, the silence is complicity, and the silence enables people the silence is what makes this dangerous for the people who try to do it. If everybody speaks out, and there are millions of us, there are millions of you who feel the same way. We are not as ostracized as we think. Have you seen the CNN videos around Florida? There are about 5 times more down votes on their stories than there are up votes on some of those. 5 to 1 on the side of being sick of the propaganda. Find our voices. Because I cannot keep doing this because it is getting to the point where I am, You can't have this one, and it's not just me. There are other people who are doing it as well. But you can't just expect a few people over on BitChute who are going to be completely eviscerated. That BitChute is going to be you just watch the media say that we are the conspiracy corner, right? It is people making the decision they are making now. We have been choosing to ignore things. You know what a lot of my family joke with me about? This is what they joke with me about all the time. They say, I want the blue pill. And I can't say that I blame people. I don't blame people for that. I really don't. However, when you decide to do that and you decide to go that route, that comes with a cost. Because what you say when I decide to take the blue pill is, I would rather not know until it becomes so in my face and so horrible and so terrible and so right and the ground is falling at my feet that I have no choice but to address it. That's the decision. So the blue pill does buy you some time. It doesn't stop anything, but it buys you some time. Cough drop. These are good. So, to my alternative media community, even if you don't want to talk about it, I think you should. Even if it's just sharing some few basic links. Even if you don't do videos yourself, share some links or whatever. I would at least ask that if you don't take the time to do the research, and you don't take time to really look at it, and you have not gone in, don't join the mainstream media in dismissing people without even having taken the time to know what you're talking about. If you haven't done the research yourself and even looked at what people are saying, and don't go by, this should be obvious, but I have to say it. Don't go by what the mainstream media is telling you we are saying, because that's not what we're saying. Their talking points around our concerns have nothing to do with what they're telling you our concerns are. Don't listen to them. Listen to the people directly. Look at the information. Is it documented? Is it real? Is it logical? And then go from there. So if you're in a mainstream media, if you're an alternative media commentator who has decided not to do this work, and I don't fault anybody, then at least don't make it more difficult and add to the climate of making it dangerous through the denouncement and the demonization and ostracization of those who are trying to do the work, and you are making it dangerous. Because right now, as we see them trying to create trying to make it legal to be able to preemptively detain people on subjective social media posts. So that person's crazy, that person's a threat. Who do you think they're going to target? So if you're going along with a narrative that ostracizes people for just questioning and going along with that conspiracy theory crazy, you are helping aid the danger to truth tellers. And you really need to knock that shit off. Even if you don't want to talk about it yourself. That is the least you can do. It's the least you can do. And you might want to not just do your stories around it, because that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, like, Jimmy Dore did a thing where they were saying that Bernie Sanders was being attacked on the shooting. Jimmy didn't mention that the entire story around the shooting is basically debunked by the media's own information. Jimmy Dore just did this talking point as if that doesn't even exist, and that Bernie Sanders is a victim? Okay, that's kind of a weird thing in the face of everything we're seeing. Grabs of rights and all of this, you're going to do a story about Bernie Sanders being a victim. Okay. Just don't be talking about a story and yield the narrative by just accepting it as face value and just going on to talk about it without putting those things out. You know, it's like, if you don't want to do it, fine, but don't make it harder for other people. And they do, and you do. You make it harder for other people. And so the reason I wanted to do this video is not because I want to keep talking about Florida, because I don't. In fact, I don't really want to be talking about these shootings anymore. I think I've given people enough information to be able to ask the critical questions for themselves, and that's what everybody should do. People should regain the ability to look at things objectively, not just believe anything that you're shown, and look at what they're actually presenting to you and stop listening to what they're telling you. Because what they're telling you doesn't match what they just showed you in the last clip. I don't want to get all Italian martyr about it. It's all right, fine. That's all right. You leave me out here twisting in the wind. That's okay. I'll be fine. You know, if they come after me, you can do a GoFundMe for my children. It'll be all right. That's okay. It's a mother's love. It's a mother's love for all of you. I hope you appreciate what I do for you. And if people are, some people have just come on this thread, and if you are a new person who have come on this thread, and you're like, well, what information is she providing? She's talking about this event. I've already done those videos. This is kind of a follow-up to the videos that I already presented and the links that I already presented. So if you're interested in learning about all of that information, it is documented on BitChute. It's documented on my Facebook page. It's documented in my videos. All the links are included in the videos. So if you're a person, some people are like, if you're new, you can go. I'm not going to I can't redo the video every day. They're all done. So I think I've done, and this concludes the series. I have done the development of the crisis industry after 2012, and they took away the Smith Act and they legalized PSYOPs. I have done how they are using mental illness to do power grabs far outside of gun control on both sides. Both sides. And I have done one video that basically documents, and all the video is all of the timeline evidence and the interview evidence, which basically contradicts everything that the media is trying to tell you. So those 3 videos are there for you. And this is the 4th. And I think this is going to, I don't really want to be, I don't like covering these events, but I do it because I think it's important enough that somebody speaks out, and that more people are speaking out. There are more and more people up over on BitChute who are trying to get the real information. So, well, hello, George. Welcome. Good to see you. I'm going to be going over to BitChute for my content. I'm actually really excited because I think like my video a couple days ago got 7,000 views. Now, that's not like the 50,000 I got here 2 days ago, but that's really a promising start. I will probably have 10,000 views over on BitChute in a couple days. So that means that platform is taking hold. Go and join me on BitChute. I know it's a pain in the ass, but I really can't keep coming back on here. So I just wanted to put that out there. This is my bookend to this. And so thank you, everybody. It's all right. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. I'm going to be all right. I'm just going to have to make sure, I'm going to make sure that my tires are fine when I go outside. It'll be all right. I love you. Thank you for watching. I'll be back sometime over on BitChute and maybe DTube with a blog. And we'll figure out how we're going to pivot so that we can move towards creating support for each other during these very, very, very trying times. Peace out, everybody. Thank you. I need it.